Hello, everyone. Welcome. We are Irenicast. I'm Jeff,
I'm Bonnie.
And I'm Casey.
and this is continuing the conversation. We are here to continue to provoke your progressive Christian imagination, and we're going to be talking about episode 174 with Tennyson Wolf, an interview conducted by our very own Casey. So there we go. So as people are kind of filtering in for this continuing the conversation, we have a lot to cover and talk about. So number one, and we're going to review this a couple times as we go through. Number one, if you are joining us on Facebook and you go to that little sign up tab at the top of the Facebook, I want to encourage everyone to do so because before we do that, we have another guest coming in. Rajiv made it.
Sorry, lost track of time.
Little late, but he's here. Welcome, Rajiv. I was saying right now, for those of you that are watching on Facebook, if you want to, we would encourage you, we would love you to tap that little sign up button at the top and sign up to our brand new email list that we're going to be starting. Our first email is going to go out next week, and we're going to kind of get that going because we have a lot of stuff coming up in regard to the show and in regard of extra things that we've been planning for a while now that we're finally sort of at a place to move forward with. So please sign up for that. And one of the very first things that we're going to be doing is, Bonnie, Casey, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Drum roll.
About what's happening. What's this big event that we have coming up soon?
You start, Casey.
No,
I'll jump in.
No, Bonnie. B is for before Casey.
Oh, B and then C.
That's right.
Okay. We're really excited. Casey and Alan and I are going to be leading something called Intersections. It's a processing group, processing support, place to vent, place to be held, place to wonder. For folks who are leaving evangelical or fundamentalist traditions and are kind of just finding their way out of that, but not sure exactly where they're headed and want to process their experience. For many of us, we identify with things like spiritual abuse, spiritual trauma, and this will be a place where you come together with other people who've had a similar experience, and you get to like lean in and like handle some of that stuff. Casey,
Absolutely.
what else?
Yeah, so I'm super excited. And for many of you that have been listening since, the three of us joined, Bonnie, Rajiv, and I, maybe you remember to episode 113 where that we were having a conversation about intersections. And if I recall correctly, there were many of you who were writing saying, man, I wish there was something like this in my neck of the woods. I wish that I could be in a cohort of people to talk about my religious trauma or pain or process. And now, thanks to COVID, we are offering this to you virtually, through Zoom. And it's going to be 20 people minimum,
right?
30 people max. And you're going to be placed in a cohort of people to talk about your experiences. We have it's a 6 week course. And we already have laid out the 6 topics that I would love for Bonnie to share at some point. But I'm really excited about this because it allows for you not just to connect with us and for us to connect with you, but for you to connect with other people who are on this same journey. So often this can feel really isolating and alone as you're navigating what it means to let go of some of fundamentalism or whatever, all that stuff. And you get to do that in a group now. So it's really exciting.
Absolutely. And we have done this before. Casey, Allen, and I have done this before.
That's right.
And we learned a lot along the way. So it's really exciting to adapt it so it can be a Zoom cohort rather than an in-person live cohort, which is what we have done in the past. It's people who have been through Intersections have talked about how much it has meant to them to be able to find their tribe. I think that
That's
how many
right.
times did we hear that?
So many.
We found our tribe. So you're invited. We hope to fill up. We hope to get 30 people who are interested in this journey and want to meet some other folks that are their tribe.
Right. And the very best way to sign up and get information when we have it available, which is going to be within the week. within the week, we're going to have all of the specific information on how you can sign up. Please sign up for our email list. Click that sign up tab, or if you go to our website and you see that lovely picture that someone pointed out looks like a 90s album cover, there's a little email icon. If you click that, you can also sign up for the email list there, and we'll update you on everything that's happening, and also update you on all the amazing things that are coming forward, because this is a cohort, a 6-week stuff, but we have some other stuff coming up that are, I'm not gonna lie, is pretty amazing and it's wonderful. So all that is going to be out there. We wanted to get that out there before we got into this week's continuing the conversation. I did put a link in the comment section of the episode that Casey was talking about, in which they talked about intersections and kind of the advent of it and how that worked. And that's episode 113. So irenicast.com/113. So yeah, with all that out of the way, if you're coming in, please feel free to say hi in the comments. We do want to continue this conversation. We want to talk to you. We want to move forward, and we want to discuss this recent episode with Tennyson Wolf. So, Casey, Tennyson Wolf, you gave us a good interview with some good questions. So tell us a little bit more about kind of your thoughts now that it's out there. I mean, because we recorded it pre-COVID. Or no, it was at the beginning
right at the start. Yeah, right at the start of
Black Lives Movement, or Black Lives Matter, in terms of all the stuff that's happened since then with the murder of George Floyd. So it was it's kind of right in that timing, and we've been trying to get all these episodes out in a timely manner. So anyway, I'll shut up. Casey, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. It was really good to listen to again. I am a big fan of Tennyson Wolf and so grateful for his friendship. And what I noticed in that conversation was just the tenderness of Tennyson Wolf and his sort of wondering, which that's something that I really appreciate about friendship, and something that, again, Rajiv always goes back to, is that sense of reverence, that wondering, finding, as Alan would call it, those thinking partners. And to listen to Tennyson sort of go through his book and talk about despair and grief, but also talk about healing and transformation, was really powerful, but not in this big booming way, but in a very Tennyson way, which is tender and kind and thoughtful. And I feel like you have to really listen to what Tennyson is saying, because it's layered, it's thick, palpable almost. I don't know if that came through to all of you, but yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, re-listening to it. And in fact, later in this conversation, depending upon how things go, I may read something and ask you all a question or two. But I would love to hear from you. What was it like for you to hear that conversation? What came up for you?
I loved that conversation, Casey. Thank you so much for introducing us all to Tennyson Wolf. What a just wise soul. And to have the two of you in conversation about despair, and two very brave people who are willing to actually take on the conversation about despair and examine some of the landscape of what despair looks like, which I think so many of us can relate to that right now.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think he offered some really great and clear insight on how our culture has brought us up to put the focus on things that just keep us in a spiral of despair. And we're always trying to attain something that's ultimately never attainable. So the way he was able to flip the perspective on those things, like achievement was one that he talked about specifically, and then ascension kind of in relation to achievement. And he's like, well, stop worrying about the ascending part. Maybe you need to descend and go deeper. And it just a lot of wisdom. I mean, those things are easy to talk about real quickly, but to actually put those things into practice for yourself and to help others put that, or be part of the journey of others who put that into practice. Yeah, that thing, that's an episode I'm going to be listening to multiple times as I first really try to take in what he's talking about, and then second stage for me will be, okay, how do I begin to try to actually implement this this way of thinking and being, and at least test it out. I want to give myself the chance to test it out. I don't know if I'm going to like it because it's really different, but I do feel like it's worth testing out.
Yeah. I feel like I don't consider myself always live on the bright side of life kind of person. But I did catch myself in that conversation wanting to move away. Towards the end of the conversation, you hear me just sort of say something very flippantly, and it wasn't meant or intended to be sort of like, yeah, and you just keep going. And Tennyson sort of said, no, you don't just keep going. You slow down and sit in it. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, yeah. So I think that that's something really in these times that is really important for us, is for us to be able to actually sit in our grief and in our pain. I think that's what's happening culturally. And like we are at the moment of gazing, where our attention is caught because we have nowhere else to go and nowhere else to be. And there are some of us who are afraid to notice, afraid to grieve. But I really believe there is an invitation for us to do that, to sit in the grief. Yeah.
Right. Real quick, if you're out there in the comments, please feel free to say hi. Alan joining us on vacation, sort of. Hey, Alan. Hope you're enjoying your first
Hi, Alan.
vacay.
Yeah. Hey, Alan.
Anyone else, please feel free to give us your thoughts on the more recent episode or anything we're saying here. Casey, now that when you were talking, it made me think of something that really struck me in the conversation that you had with Tennyson, was that not just the wisdom that he imparted, but the way in which he did it. It was this this intangible observance that he had, where even within the conversation with you, like it's almost like he could sense like not like what direction you were going or what you were doing, but why you were doing it, and was able to address kind of the whole of the situation. It was really fascinating to me. There was a calmness in there that I couldn't quite put my finger on, but as you were talking, there's kind of that idea of just, it's one thing to see something happen, but then to, it's a weird picture that I get in my head. Not that he was presenting himself robotically, because he came off very warm as a warm person and very compassionate. But like I got that, that Terminator thing where like, you're looking at all the things that are happening around you, and able to take all that information in and then, act on it in a split second. And that seemed to be just an effortlessness in the way that he approaches. I imagine that translates in real life as well.
Yeah, it does, for sure.
It's comfort with the dark places.
That's right.
That really came through. And there were a few images that he used that really struck me. Like, I think he talked about the descent and his own experience at a really low time of just feeling like he needed to get his body as low to the ground as possible.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've been doing that lately. I've been like lying down on the floor wondering, what is that about? And then when I heard your conversation with Tennyson, I thought, maybe it's just needing to kind of find some sort of grounding and be okay with being low down to the ground.
Yeah. To the floorboards. I mean, he just, that image of him sleeping in the closet, because he just felt like his room was too big. I mean, I have felt that, I remember it was, so when I was, fortunately, when I was going to college and I was coming out, our rooms were literally old nuns' rooms, right? So literally they were like 9 by 11 or something. They were very, very tiny. And I would just lock myself in there and just like cover the windows, because it just felt like I needed this small space to hold me. I just needed to be held by this space. And I think there are so many of us that can relate to that. Maybe it's the floor, maybe it's the closet, but for many of us, despair has led us to this place where we just long to be held by something, whether that be the firmness of the ground or the darkness of a closet. Yeah. One of the things that I also love about Tennyson, and I asked him these questions, and I just wondered for each of you how you hear these questions or how you would respond to them. But this sense of who are you? What has your attention? And what does that have to do with you?
You're gonna put us on the spot like that, Casey?
Yeah.
Without any warning?
Yeah.
Is that how
But
it
it's
goes?
sort of like Rajiv's question to you, Bonnie, at one point. Who are you today?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I think that who are you is maybe the most unanswerable question there is. And not that any of us don't have an idea at a given moment about, kind of what we think we're about. But, just existence itself is a real mystery. And that's another thing that goes counter to our post-enlightenment, framework of scientific discovery and inquiry, where we can figure anything out, and we ourselves, the thing that we are supposedly most intimately knowledgeable of, can't even answer that question truly. And I would say beware of people who think they can answer that question fully. And so it's like I want to try to answer it, but I really wouldn't even know where to start, because I would just start with identifiers versus substance.
Yeah. I know what has my attention today, and it is in relation to who I am and who I was. I was actually talking to Jeff about this day, and I cannot let this go. And so maybe just offering this to you. So there is like this conspiracy that's going around online that says that the Black Lives Matter movement is actually a new religion. It's a new cult. Because it is promoting the reciting of ancestors' names and kneeling. And so this is obviously being shared out by evangelicals who are saying, be wary of chanting the names of dead people. It might be a new religion. And I'll tell you today, I am someone who, seeks justice, who has had a traumatizing experience with, Pentecostals. And when I hear about all these Pentecostals who rallied outside the Capitol yesterday in California, who are reciting things like Black Lives Matter as a demonic movement created to, get people to stop worshiping Jesus, I begin to think about like how many people have chanted Jesus's name while murdering people. And I felt in myself this sense of like, I would rather follow that movement than the Jesus movement at this point. if that's really what this is about. Because I mean, all day I've been thinking about this, mostly because I'm so irritated by this idea that we can just blanket things as unchristian and cultish, and to avoid what's really happening, the real demons of white supremacy and patriarchy. And it is being supported by pastors, and so that's what has my attention today. And that's sort of where I'm feeling a little angsty and some despair for friends who repost this kind of crap, despair for our nation that is just feeling so divided and angry. So yeah, that's what I come with today.
And before we we have some more people joining the stream. So if you would like to give us your thoughts, Casey's presenting the question to us, what has your attention right now? And I think that's an exercise in really being aware of our space and our feelings and how we're doing. So if you would like to, please share in the comments, and we'd love to address that as well. Anyone else? What has your attention?
I think that question, who are you, is such an important question to answer every morning when we wake up.
Yeah.
It's such an important question. So I don't want to move from that too quickly. It's true. I mean, how do you fully answer that question? And maybe anybody who attempts to say, okay, here's who I am now and forever and always, I would be wary of that person. But someone who makes a stumbling attempt at being vulnerable enough to answer the question, who are you? I want to get to know that person better. So, and Tennyson seems like somebody like that. And so do the rest of you, actually. So I want to try to answer, who are you? And I'm hoping maybe others will answer that question too. Casey, as you were talking, I realized that I was getting riled up by what you were saying. So I'm clearly someone who identifies with everything that you were saying and is angry and frustrated and hates that people can't say Black Lives Matter, that there's something in them that prevents them from saying Black Lives Matter, which I think is completely an avoidance tactic for sinking into the despair of the fact that they live in a country and have participated in a country where Black lives have never mattered.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of avoidance going on there. I'm also noticing that I'm in love with my dogs. I love my my view out my window. I'm doing my best to keep my back that is aching from sitting in chairs and Zoom meetings all the time. Like I'm constantly rubbing my back. And I'm really glad to be here. Yeah. That's who I am right now. That's what I'm sitting in right now.
Right. And I think that Tennyson, I don't want to speak for him, but what I could hear him say in my head is something, and isn't that the excitement and the joy of being a human, is that we can hold all of these things. We can hold the pain and the grief of the world, and we can notice the window, the view from your window, and the love of your dogs. I love that we can hold all of these things, and that's sort of one of the joys of being human, I think. The ability to notice, just to simply notice our being. Yeah.
Well, let us know what you think in the comments. Give us your thoughts. If you had a chance to listen to this week's episode, we're talking about episode 174, the interview that Casey did with Tennyson Wolf. If you haven't, go check that out. All the show notes for that episode are at irenicast.com/174, and you can get a link to his book, Cadence of Despair, which was a large portion of the conversation that him and Casey had. A book that I believe was pretty inspiring for Casey individually. He's mentioned to us several times in some of our meetings and stuff like that. And it was great to finally get Tennyson on the program. Also a good friend of Juanita Robertson, which he mentioned a couple times about their podcast. Right. Another former guest of the show. So check that out. The link to that episode is also in the show notes at irenicast.com/174. So let us know. For those of you that are just joining us in the comments, please feel free. We want to continue this conversation. We talk to each other enough, we want to hear from you all, even if it's just via a comment on social media. So I guess it's our turn, right? Like what Rajiv did a great pivot.
Yeah.
Oh wait, we got a comment. So
say by the bell.
Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. What has my attention right now is how...
Look, that shift has never moved so quick, Bonnie. Did you notice that? Wow. Selah, you're a lifesaver.
Jeff was so happy.
All right, Selah, thank you so much for commenting. She says, what has my attention right now is how, as I'm growing, I'm realizing that it's so important to observe when you're applying your experiences onto others and understanding as many complexities as you can in all situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's a good thing to learn. I think I learned that last year, let alone
right
when I was a teenager. So that's
right.
That's
so I think you can answer the question now, Jeff.
That's right. That's right. And all of your complexities, actually.
Well, I was making a comment, Rajiv, on how you avoided answering the question by saying,
No,
"Well, I can answer it all."
I don't think I avoided it. I just didn't want to attempt an answer based on things that are like descriptors, because I would be describing things about myself or describing intentions that I have, rather than like I would really need to sink into that for a time.
Right.
And so I wasn't avoiding it. That wasn't my intent. It was to acknowledge that is a very legitimate question, and we are not culturated. We are not brought up to answer that question at all. We're brought up to fit a certain mold of what our family and what society expect us or want us to be, or commodify us. And that really is the ultimate, I think, the ultimate human enterprise is to answer that question.
Well, then clearly I'm just projecting, Rajiv.
We're just really ill-equipped.
Right.
You know, if I won the lottery tomorrow, maybe that's what I'd do, is just unplug, get an RV and go somewhere remote and spend some time thinking about, just wander around the desert and be like, who am I? Who am I? And not return till I can answer the question.
Okay.
And then that'd be the last thing to hit me.
Okay. Clearly, I'm uncomfortable with this question because I'm uncomfortable about speaking about myself, even descriptors or whatever. I don't know. Who I am right now is grateful to be hanging out with my friends in a virtual setting, although I wish it wasn't a virtual setting. I'm frustrated as hell because today I spent way longer than I should trying to get a specific task accomplished that should have taken 30 minutes and did not take 30 minutes. It ended up taking longer than that. I'm satisfied because I had a good dinner before I jumped on here. It was actually leftovers, and usually leftovers never heat right, but this one did, so it was good. It was like this little victory in the middle of the day, like, oh, it tasted almost as good as when I first made it, so that was good. Yeah, that's who I am right now, I guess. I don't know if that's a good answer.
I love it. I feel like I know you better.
He doesn't like leftovers.
Jeff is very picky about his food. That's what I know about Jeff.
Specific.
Hey,
it's the difference.
And that is frustrating
that's true.
when work takes longer than it's supposed to, which I can completely identify with.
Totally. And to that paying attention, or what has your attention, Casey? You know, it's interesting. I hadn't heard that thing about the goofy Christians who are like, oh, it's a religion. You're praying to ancestors. You're kneeling, and whatever. And it's interesting. You know, I hear that. I'm like, it doesn't bother me at all, because it's like these people who have this ideology. I mean, first of all, their theology is just so like ridiculous anyway. And it's harmful theology and so on. And I feel like all of us are combating that actively as progressive Christian ministers who speak against it in our ways and for a new kind of theology. But it's just sort of like, I don't, it's like, even if it was like a religious practice, which in some ways I believe it is, what's wrong with that? I would imagine Jesus himself would integrate that into his faith practice. I mean, he did. He spoke out against injustice. You know, he called on the ancestors all the time. He quoted the writers of the Hebrew Bible all the time. I mean, how was that not answer? And he knelt. I mean, it's like, really, the Black Lives Matter movement is embodying the Jesus movement in ways that evangelical Christianity cannot even fathom.
That's right, because they're too busy worshiping money and power and themselves. That's right. Yeah. Yep, you're right.
And avoiding the questions that Casey's trying to ask us.
Right. I'll tell you, you know, Rajiv, I love that. So look, the Enneagram is always coloring everything I'm doing, you know, And I think as a 4, this question of who are you really means something to me.
Mhm.
And for people to ask it to me means something. That's what my true friendships look like. People who are able to hold, as Sila reminded us, all of my complexity, right? And allow me the space to go to those dark places, or to be present in the light ones. But often as a 4, I don't look, I'm not a fun person. Many of you know that.
Yes,
but
you are.
I appreciate I think I appreciate authenticity. I mean, that's a value of mine. And so to show up with people and have these sorts of conversations, that's what I think has fed our relationship for a long time now. Is the ability to hold the space for one another, to ask, who are you today? And to not remind us of who we were like yesterday, but to just sort of move through that. I mean, even in one of our previous episodes, we were talking about, I can't remember, but Alan wasn't there. And we were supposed to talk about an episode that it was Jeff and Mona and Alan. And I think I started by saying, hearing this episode with Jeff and Alan and Mona, and knowing Alan now, we have a lot to celebrate for our friend. I love the journey that we are all on together. And I think that that's what makes the work that we do so important, not just for us, the 5 of us, but for all of our listeners. That's what makes Intersections, our seeking to build these cohorts, so important, so that people can begin to have the space to ask the question of, who the hell are you? Who are you today? What has your attention? And what does it have to do with you? There are not enough spaces, even in our progressive Christian circles, where we are allowed to ask those sorts of questions and hold the space for the answer.
Well, I mean, I love what you just said, Casey, and lifting up our relationship, because that is true. I mean, a lot of what we do in these public ways or semi-public ways are extensions of our relationship and friendship and things that we've been conversing about for a time. So I'm just wondering, and I mean, this is an odd way to put it out there, but next time we haven't yet had a social distance gathering with us. We've been talking about trying to do something safely, like in the backyard, have a grill out. That should be our agenda.
Yeah.
Is to do some thinking about like, who am I?
Who am I?
And to talk with one or other about it, and maybe others could do the same in their social settings. And Jeff, you can't hide behind the grill the whole time.
That's right. That's right.
So says you.
I think what Sila says is really important and useful here, because, I observed like an interaction where Casey says, he said, I'm not fun. And then Rajiv's like, yes, you are. So like the question, when you say, who are you? And you look in somebody's face and you say, who are you? They get to tell you who they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so the work is, it's a reciprocal, it's a dialogue.
Yeah.
And I think it's not just, it sounds like maybe we're wanting to center the answer to the question rather than receiving the answer from your friend when they answer the question, and having that answer impact you and make you somebody different because of the interaction.
Right. Or the assurance. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I just had this crazy thing happen maybe 2 months ago with my therapist, where I showed up to my therapy session through Zoom, and 4 of my closest friends were like on the screen waiting for me with letters of who they know me to be. And Jeff is looking like he mortified. Jeff's like, oh my God. And that's how I felt. I just wanted to like slip under my desk and like, or just turn off my computer. But I think that one of the things that we, as Bonnie is bringing up, what we fail to recognize is, who are you to me?
Right.
Who have you been to me? because I think that that's, again, in terms of intimate relationships. When Jose and I moved in together, that was like a major eye opener for me of like what an asshole I can be or how messy I can be. Because it wasn't just about me anymore. I was in relationship with another who my behaviors and my patterns now impacted, right? And so I don't think that we even do a good enough job of not just asking ourselves, "Who am I?" But we don't allow the space for people to say, "This is who you are to me." Just a thought.
Mhm.
First of all, Casey, you are correct. That I've literally had nightmares about that as well. I'll put that out there. But what you were saying reminds me of this exercise we used to do when my wife and I were in youth ministry, and whenever we do a trip with a small group of people, sometimes during all of our summer camps, we would grab like a soccer ball or something, and I'm sure a bunch of people have done this, but we'd start with the soccer ball, and I would pass it to someone, and then whoever's holding the ball, everyone in order, you had to say something good about that person. With getting a bunch of adolescents together, and there's bound to be fights and people that don't like each other that much and all that kind of stuff. And every time we did it, every time without exception, it ended with just tears everywhere, because people were finally realizing they weren't hearing their internal voice anymore. They were hearing someone else's voice.
That's
And
right.
it's one thing if it's their close friends, but they're hearing like random observations from someone that probably never even talked to them at that camp or even after, really. I mean, that happened a lot too, but to just be able to see how someone observes the way that you move in the world, if it's a kind thing to say, it can be a huge boost in just like self-confidence of, oh, well, you know what, some of that kind of can defuse some of those thoughts that we have on a regular basis that tend to diminish ourselves and all that kind of stuff. And I think that is an important exercise, and I think it's an important reminder for us as well to make sure that we are the kind of person that is going to voice those things to others on a regular basis.
That's right. Yeah. If it's okay with you, I would like to share with you guys my favorite poem from Tennyson's book. Bonnie, I think you have been in a space with me when I've done this. So, but this is just another way into sort of a conversation like the one we're having. And it's, I have 3 needs. So again, this is from Tennyson Wolfe's A Cadence of Despair. I have 3 needs: vibrant, alive, awake. Wanting to feel vibrant, wanting to feel alive, wanting to feel awake. Not dimmed, not protecting and conserving, not sleepy in soul. I have 3 needs: vibrant, alive, awake. I have been using this, so I don't do devotion time anymore. I don't know I think Jeff does. Jeff, do you still do that? Are you still like you get up early and read your Bible and all that jazz? I thought
No.
you'd. Okay.
I get up. I have ritual in the morning, but it's not.
Okay. All right.
I make coffee. That's my ritual.
There you go. So I have been chewing on that for a long time because I feel like the question that Tennyson is asking me, and that is, where do you feel most vibrant? What makes you feel alive, and what are you awakening to? Because that's sort of like the roller coaster I've been on in the last 6 months, as we are marching through quarantine or drowning in quarantine. I don't know, sliding, but yeah, that's sort of. Those are the questions that I've been pondering, and just thought I'd offer them to you.
It feels like right now life is muted.
Yeah,
I'm just going to name that.
Yeah.
That some of the ways that I would have answered this question before this pandemic would have been so different. Now, what brings vibrancy and aliveness it seems small.
Mm.
compared to what it used to be. And just reflecting on that is making me very aware of like the craziness with which we lived our lives, and how
Yeah.
having to step back and find joy in a more muted space is a gift. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, vibrancy now is like picking tomatoes, which that's amazing to be able to go outside and notice all the tomatoes growing. They just
Hell
keep
yes.
growing and growing and growing, and we pick them and we use them. That's like one of the most vibrant things I'm doing right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, good poetry does this in that the poet will make what seems like a very simple observation, and then it just unlocks all this stuff. Like I'm stuck on trying to understand the difference between vibrancy and aliveness, and I think I get where Tennyson is coming from, but that's such a beautiful distinction, because we sometimes would conflate the two,
Right.
and they're not the same. So I'm thinking about that, and then like what Bonnie just said, there's so much about this pandemic that when we were working, outside the home, just sort of on that hamster wheel, we were like, boy, wouldn't it be nice to fill in the blank, bake a
Yep.
loaf of bread, try some new recipes, cook at home more, have a vegetable garden. There's all that stuff, and yet and we're doing this stuff, but we're not really sinking into it. We're not fully embracing the joy
Yeah.
of this time. We're doing it as a way to like keep our sanity, rather than like, this is life. This is beautiful. And I'm
This is real living.
I'm guilty of this too. It's like, this is a beautiful moment. And I have this opportunity to have a string of beautiful moments where the world has slowed down. How long have I been crying for the world to slow down?
Yeah.
And here it is. And I
Yep.
can't enjoy it. I can't savor it. It's like that. It's so twisted. And we've got a few more months of this, at least here in the Sacramento area. So I'm going to try to reframe how I deal with that day in, day out stuff, to move as a coping mechanism, to really embrace this as an opportunity. A really awful way to bring about a gift, but nonetheless, there is a gift to be unwrapped, I guess.
Absolutely.
I envy that place, Rajiv, because that is not how I see it. I mean, I'm not there. Like I miss, and I know part of it is just the being okay with not being productive is a difficult place for me to sit, just in general. And I think the slow down thing, I agree in the sense that that having those opportunities to slow down and life is slowing down and stuff like that. But I also think that sometimes we have a tendency to forget that there can be beauty in that, in that routine, in the hustle and bustle, because in the midst of that, things are being created. And I think that I think it's easy to be. I think that the real maybe exercise is, how do you be in that place that you're talking about right now, Rajiv, where you're like, yes, all this disaster is happening. This is a pandemic. This is not the way that we want to be. But how do you be present in both places, right? When you do get to slow down, and then when you can be busy. And I think that's the key too, is how can we be observant when that is just going to be life sometimes, or I don't know, maybe it won't go back to that. No one knows at this point, but yeah, I'm just, talking about, where are you at? Like, I hate this so much. Like I'm frustrated that people are completely disregarding it, but also super jealous of them. Like, I wish, just to be able to, to go anywhere whenever I want, but trying to be like a good person and protect people around me and do the right thing with not going out and not being in public places, and then just seeing people being flippant about the world around them. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's so frustrating. And then just for me to sit and be calm about it. I don't know, calm's the right word, but yeah, I mean, but there's things that I'm enjoying about it. I've gotten a lot more video game time over the last few months, but like just internally, like it's just this constant, like I just want to like go to a barbecue. I just want to go to the movie theater and see Tenet and not read stories about how it's being released in other countries that are actually have their shit together. All those things, and I'm thinking about the holidays coming up, like family gatherings, and how many people are just gonna like throw caution to the wind. And I'm frustrated that people are so, I don't know, maybe it's a time thing, and I'm just spitballing here, so please just tell me to shut up if I want, but maybe it's a time thing. Like there's no longevity in people's thinkings, right? Like in the reality of it, like, yes, there's going to be consequences of us being in a pandemic, but even if it's a year out of how many years do we live, out of how many years do we go through, and are we going to make up for it by overworking ourselves and all that kind of stuff? Like the end of the world is going to happen. And it reminds me of like the pressure that was put on me as a parent, right? Like if you mess up the kid in that first 3 years, or you do one thing when they're young, then they're going to be in therapy for the rest of their life. Like we just have this snowball immediate view of the world that one thing is gonna chain react and ruin the whole thing. It reminds me of that evangelical sin stuff, like if you commit a sin, you have sex before marriage, or you don't accept Jesus at this altar and you die in a car wreck on the way home. Like I wish that not everything had to have so many eternal consequences, right? Can't just something have an immediate consequence and just be what it is.
Yeah, like heating leftovers to satisfaction.
Right. I could spend weeks experimenting the best ways to reheat food. In fact, I do. I YouTube and Google like best way to reheat this. I'll spend an hour.
Well, you could write a book on that then, Jeff.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, writing a book sounds very not fun.
Or do a little how-to videos.
Right. So I don't know. That's where what I see, like that's the kind of where I'm at, what I'm observing, Casey, what I'm observing right now about the world around me, what I'm aware of, what has my attention.
Do you know what I miss? I miss missing people. Like I miss the ritual of like leaving for the day, and I won't see my people all day. And I'll think about them during the day, and I'll go about my business, and then I come home at night and I'm like, "Oh, hi. How are you? How was your day?" And we get to sort of gather around and, chat about the day instead of just being on each other all the time. I miss that.
That's a very wonderful way to frame that. Like, right? Most people would frame that as I'm just sick and tired of being around my family, but you go with I miss missing them. Bonnie, that's why you are the core of our show. Real quick before we move on, Sela, again, thank you so much for sharing. This pandemic introduced me to the feeling of eerie joy, which is where I'm feeling a real happiness, but don't know exactly where it's from or how it's possible considering life right now. Man, Sela, you want to join the team?
Yeah.
And for all those people out there feeling guilty for feeling okay, please don't. I know we talk a lot about how people are crumbling and unraveling and all that. There are some people who might be totally fine. And if you're totally fine and you're soaking this up and it's good for you, keep going. Like, God bless you or whatever. BLM bless you, whatever it is. The religion of your choice.
One of the things that I was thinking about as Jeff was talking is this is where the Hebrew Bible is really helpful, right? Those Israelites who were so pissed about being in Egypt, and then they get out into the wilderness, and then they're pissed about being there. I think that this is just sort of a human nature thing, that we're just sort of pissed wherever the hell we are. And the invitation is for us to really slow down, take a moment, and to just for a second be grateful. And that's a practice, right? It's a life practice. It's like a lifelong practice. Because there certainly are moments where I'm just like, this sucks. But then there are moments that I'm reminded, like, we may never get this time ever again in a lifetime, where we can be around our family this much, where we, have the opportunity to work from home this much, or whatever, however you're navigating this. And I imagine that when life begins to return to whatever normal looks like, there will be grief for this moment. And I'm trying so hard to suck this up as much as I can, because I guess maybe I have a little like fear of missing out, a little FOMO, and I don't want to look back on this time and say I didn't use this time in a way that was beneficial to my life. I mean, that is in some ways what sort of how faith has returned to me, in the sense of like understanding what gratitude means and trying my hardest to notice life right here, because this is the only opportunity we get.
Right.
So,
well, and just going off of the title of Tennyson's book, The Cadence of Despair, that there's this rhythm
that's
to these
right.
things, and that yes, the circumstances around us are new, but I would venture to say that maybe the feelings aren't, that they're just amplified, and we have an opportunity to view patterns that maybe we buried under certain things.
Yep.
And we're just rediscovering a rhythm that maybe came more natural to us when we were younger. And I love that title of the book, because I think it embodies all the things that we're talking about here, where there's this, we have our individual rhythms, and we're in a band, right? Like we're corresponding, and we're going with other parts of the band and trying to keep this one constant rhythm. And the pandemic almost acts like a universal metronome, right? Like it's putting us all in the same place where we have some sort of reference that everyone has. And when do we have that last? Like we didn't,
Right.
I mean, maybe in American culture, we had that to a certain extent with like certain entertainment things, like when there was only 3 networks and, 100 million people tuned in to see the finale of like MASH or something like that, where there's sort of that. And then maybe the closest thing is like the Super Bowl, or these most cultural milestones. But now we all have the same one. And what kind of, and yet, even though we still have that same anchor, how much more divided do we feel? Like how much more out of sync do we feel with the rest of the band, so to speak? And that's maybe for me, that's like the despair is like, come on, getting when we used to lead worship and as a youth pastor, we'd always have, I always want students to play, good or bad, and some drummers, I was like, I'm really excited you're playing today. And others, I was like, everything's just off, and how that could throw everything into a spin. And being aware of our rhythms, I think is, if we were to phrase it that way, a gift that we can take advantage of if we want to.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for being in this conversation with me today, friends. I love you all, and thank you, Tennyson Wolf, for your friendship and your amazing book.
Yes.
For real.
Yep.
And make sure that you check the show notes to the episode at renacast.com/174, and you can there's a link there to his website and all that kind of stuff. So check that out. And then before we sign off, don't forget, if you want, we would love for you to sign up for our email list. So if you go at the top of the Facebook page and just click that sign up button that's there, it'll take you to a landing page where you can put in your email address, and we will get you some information with our upcoming Intersections cohort, and we'll have more information on that as we go forward. So one last recap, Bonnie, Casey, tell us a little bit about why people should get on that email list so they can get information about Irenicast and the upcoming Intersections.
You go, Casey.
All the cool kids are on it. So
I'm like, Bonnie being there is enough. I don't know why anybody else would, Like,
Well,
you get time with Bonnie. So
Well, yeah. Go ahead, Rajiv. You were going
let
to
me
say
try a
something.
little shout out for intersections, because this is something we did for almost 3 years together in
That's
a
right.
live format.
Yep.
And the impact, I mean, the feedback we've gotten from people who've participated in intersections, people will say things like, it's life changing. I thought I was the only one. I need this so much, because processing this transition and unpacking stuff, it's helpful to do this with other people who get it. Because a lot of us who come from very conservative environments, when we talk to people who didn't grow up that way, they look at you like, what in the world happened to you as a child? and that is, it can feel really uncomfortable. So this is an opportunity to talk with others who get it, who've been in similar situations, and facilitated by incredible people. I mean, Bonnie, Casey, and Alan will be great facilitators. It'll be time well spent, and you'll probably make some good friendships that will last you a while. So sign up.
Absolutely. I'm wondering if we could just, Bonnie, maybe read like the 6 weeks, what each of them are called, so people can sort of get a feel.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now so that I can make sure that I get it right. But yeah, we have different topics that we're going to be exploring together, and it'll be you'll be bringing your at the moment authentic self to these topics as we go through the 6-week session. So here they are. Sorry. The first one's my story meets your story. So story sharing. The second session is God and the Bible. And as Casey said, let's like get all that stuff out of the way, like up at the beginning. What are the things about God in the Bible we just need to say, put out there, purge, whatever you want to say. And then the third session, me, myself, and I, relationship with self. Fourth session, purity, culture, and sexuality. The fifth session is spiritual trauma and grief. And then the last one is gratitude for the journey.
All very exciting. It will be time well spent in conversations that I hope will heal the soul, or at least start you on the journey. So I'm very excited as well.
Me too.
Right. It's full circle, right? This era of Irenicast started with intersections, and the next era is going to start it again. So make sure you sign up for that. Check all the information, get on the website, get on the email list, because we have more stuff coming. Spoilers, maybe some courses, spoilers, maybe some more episodes that are awesome. They always are. So sign up for that. And I think for this continuing the conversation, I'm Jeff.
I'm Bonnie.
I'm Casey.
And this is Rajiv. Peace.
We'll see you next week, next time. We'll catch you on the flip side, however that's gonna go. Take care, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and don't forget to sign up for that email list.